You're now watching Two Old Farts Making Noises. Welcome to Canadian Art Today with your host, Paul Constable.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Paul. Good morning or good
Good
afternoon,
morning.
wherever we happen to be.
Yeah, well, we're crouching towards more afternoon here, getting close. But no, good to see you again. For everybody who maybe doesn't know Joanne, Joanne has her own company called Remarque Art Consulting. So she's an artist coach. She's a mentor. She's a graduate of Guelph and master. I guess you're an art history major. Art appraisals. Joanne's been on our show a number of times before and different formats that we've done, and we have a really interesting challenge for Joanne today. This will be kind of like part one and part two show. This is going to be basically a show on how does an artist approach an art gallery, but also prepare to do that presentation. And I guess I'll call it a presentation because you really need to bone up to be ready for this. It's getting into the real business world as an artist, and it's to some artists it's important. And there we go. There's our first slide, is to tell what we're going to do. Our little bit of our direction. Um, I just warn everybody, the imagery is just so you don't fall asleep. I didn't want to just be a whole bunch of page of text. So it's this is kind of a tutorial, and Joanne and I've been through a few of these before, and I think it's always worth mentioning again. Like I said, you can never sometimes say some things are so important you need to say more than once, and we're very fortunate to be able to put this on our channel. And so, welcome again, Joanne. Thank you for being a part of our program today.
Thank you, Paul. It's always great to be here and to speak with you. And I promise people won't fall asleep. I'll give them so much information that they'll be busy.
Well, we're just going to follow our cue here and just say, I mean, we are in two parts here. So I wanted to ask people to understand that this one is about the artist approaching a gallery. How are you going to do that and prepare to do that? And our second show, which will be like back to back on this one, um, will be on the art gallery's perspective on what do they want in an artist. So, two ways to look at this thing from two different points of view. And I think it's important that artists understand that. Um, and I think we'll just go right into. I guess most of the artists are looking at getting into a commercial gallery situation. Um, and that's and thank you to Gordon Harrison Gallery for their use of their imagery for their gallery, lovely galleries across the country. Um, Commercial galleries offer great value to an artist if they're really working towards pushing their careers, get their careers going, get their exposure, get their things out. Where do you start with an artist? I'm going to be devil's advocate. I'm going to be that young artist that I'm saying, I, I, I I want an art gallery. What do I do? Where do I start, Joanne?
Okay. Well, where do you start? So the first thing is that you need to understand that there are different types of galleries, Paul, other than just a commercial gallery.
Okay.
So I guess because the enneagrams have become so popular in identifying personality types, do we want to talk about archetypal types, Paul, or do you just want me to dive in with sort of what's important for an artist to understand?
I think we need to understand what kind of artists we have out there.
Okay.
Where am I positioned? Because I don't know whether I'm ready for an art gallery or not.
Right.
What do I have to do? So let's just. It's great that you've been able to pigeonhole us. I mean, good Lord, you need somebody from the outside to do this, because there are, yeah, at least 5 different types of artists, and maybe not some of these don't want an art gallery, but it's nice to understand. What do I need to do to get there if I want to transition from one stage of my growth to another?
So you're right, Paul. I mean, and what I'm going to present is there is certainly not one size fits all. I think people will understand, see themselves in a little bit of everything that I'm going to talk about. But let's talk about some of the sort of the 5 main characteristics that I think happen with a lot of artists. So let's start with the first one, and that is you have the type of artist who is a people pleaser. So these types of artists are very unconfident, actually, with their own process for a number of reasons. And so they are painting for the market. They're trying to understand what is going to sell in the market. And this is really a mug's game, because we are all over the place in the market. The market changes. And some people will like your work and some people will not like your work. So if you're a people pleaser, you need to understand that you're playing a bit of a dangerous game in trying to figure out what people are going to like. The second category that I've come up with is a disciple. And these are artists that will follow a particular artist. So Gordon Harrison is a great example, I think, whereby Gordon is very successful across Canada. And so he has many disciples. I see many examples of his work across Canada. And again, this becomes a problem in a sense that the artist is not counting on their own level of creativity to produce independent work. And so that leaves an artist feeling, I don't think, great about what they're doing. If people look at their work and go, hey, that looks like Gordon Harrison's work, perhaps that's not really the focus of where you should be. The next category of artist is called what I call the perpetual student. And I work with artists like this who are in continuous learning process, whereby, again, they're not trusting their own abilities. They're looking for the next thing that is going to catapult them into success. So they follow an artist and they're trying to emulate that artist. And they become very focused on taking course after course, never really trusting themselves, never saying enough. I've taken enough courses. What have I learned? How can I create my own style? So this is also an area of concern, which I see pop up regularly in my business. The fourth type of artist is called the producer. And a producer produces a lot of work, whether it's good work, whether it's mediocre work, whether it's not good work. But the impetus or the motivation for this type of artist is that they think if they produce more work, they will have better success. Not always the case. I would caution you to say, if you are overproducing inferior or mediocre work, that's not really where you want to be. You want to pull back and you want to concentrate on more good pieces that perhaps are going to give you traction. And the last, I want to mention a couple more, but the last one is the copyist. And the copyist is kind of like the disciple, where, how many times have we seen Van Gogh's sunflowers painted? Many, many times. And so that type of artist, again, is not confident with their own ability. And artists are wonderful creators, Paul. They do have the ability to create amazing things if they give themselves a chance. But I think the problem is that they become, unconfident, not sure, especially if you're a younger artist and you just don't know what to do. I wanted to throw in a couple of two other categories that I think are important. And one is my definition of an emerging artist. So when people hear the word emerging artist, they think that that's a bad thing. And quite to the contrary, an emerging artist, in my opinion, is the kind of artist who is experimenting, who is hoping to find their voice, their stride, their brand, their whatever. And this is a very important stage in an artist's progression. So I do think that really emerging artist takes time. It's not something that you're going to be able to define yourself if you've only been painting for a year or two. And there's quite a distinction then between, let's say, a mid-career artist and an established artist. So mid-career artists are artists that have gained recognition, that are in an art gallery, that have been perhaps published, but they are not at the same level as an established artist, like an artist like Gordon Harrison, for example, who is his name is recognizable, and we know what we're going to see with his work. So that's kind of in a nutshell, Paul, what I see in terms of archetypal types.
Yeah, yeah, and in kind of a discussion of some of those types, what one would fit into a gallery situation. So, of the 5 or 6 that we just talked about, what ones could be nurtured into the gallery? The gallery is looking for a certain type. They want volume of work, but they want good work supplied to them on a regular basis, and they can produce it. Where you have artists that may produce good work, but it's low volume. We have some that hit a good one once in a while, and then they blow it with the next one. Like, they need to know when to pull those ones away out of the portfolio and put them aside and work on them. So what one of those ones is a good starting point for an artist that is thinking of getting into a gallery?
Well, I think I would circle back and say that any gallery, no matter what type it is, if it's a virtual gallery, if it's a commercial gallery, if it's some other type of gallery, really, the bottom line is that the artist has to be producing good work, and they have to be obsessed with quality. So no gallery is going to take on an artist whose work is inconsistent. And I think I called it multiple artist disorder, where, an artist, and particularly this happens with an emerging artist, where they paint a floral and then they go in and paint a landscape. And really, no gallery, in all sincerity, is going to take you into their gallery unless you're showing a pretty consistent body of work that is of high caliber. So when I talk to young artists, really, I say work, 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 have patience, and then work again. There's no artist that I know that hasn't grinded it out to try and find their stride, and is now producing a solid body of work. It's difficult, but there are very few galleries that will actually take on an artist without a consistent body of work. Now, that doesn't mean that you can change your style at some point. That's fine, but you need to present, probably in your inventory, at least 20 pieces of art that are of good quality. And as I said, you're obsessed with quality. Your work is finished well. If it's framed well. It's presented well. And so I think that's the very first point that I want to make, is that you have to produce good work. So if you're not sure, you hire a consultant, you hire a person like me who would go over your portfolio and say, okay, look at this. And I go back to the artist and I say, how do you feel about this? Do you feel that this is your best work? And if they say no, then I say, you're not going to present that to an art gallery. You're going to present to an art gallery when you're confident with your own work, and you've got all of your ducks in order. And by that, Paul, I mean that you have to, yes, so you have to have a strong artist statement. You have to have a good CV. You have to have a good social media presence. You have to have a good website. And for young artists getting started, they tend to just want to paint, and they forget about how important the marketing side of this business is, because galleries will solicit off of social media or off of websites. So nowadays, because the competition is so intense, it's critical that even if it's a beginning artist that wants to go into a commercial gallery, it's critical, that you research the type of gallery that you want to get into. And by that, I mean that you begin to stalk galleries that you think your work may fit into. So if it's a traditional gallery and you're an abstractionist or an experimental artist, you know that you don't have a hope in hell that you're going to get into a gallery like that. But if you stalk various galleries that you think you want to get into, take a cold, hard look at, does your work meet their mission and their mandate? And if you think it does, then I would suggest that before you even submit, that you visit the gallery if you can, that you attend openings if you can. At a bare minimum, you can sign up and receive their newsletter. And you can, if you look at an artist's roster, you can see that the type of artist that they're taking in. So that's kind of a general philosophy, Paul.
Yeah, I think you have to do the research. And how you do it is relative to, like you said, their location. If you're from away somewhere, then use the internet, use their website, go through the gallery situation, say what galleries are good ones. If you know other artists, probably talk to them about galleries as well. Because there are kind of A and B levels of galleries in cities, that we have. Some are kind of salon style where floor to ceiling and the walls are every square inch is full, where there's some that are more minimalist and they focus on the artist, not like sort of everyone or group show kind of situations. They're actually have the space where they can store I hate the word stable of artists. I just hate, sounds like I'm in a barn, but anyway, and you're owned like an animal, but you can store the work in the back and you can feature, an art show for someone. So it's good to go on the website and see what the other artists are doing. Because you go to a gallery, you're not going to see all the art that they have. There's no way, they don't have enough wall space to do that. I just found it so difficult now when I travel to go and see a gallery because they're closed more days than they're open half the time. They've just limited their hours, and it's the big thing if you want something, phone us. It's on the door, which is annoying as all get out. So they're really depending on their online to reach their audience, but it is frustrating for someone who does travel, who likes to go from gallery to gallery and a bit of a gallery walk on their own. And a lot of times they're closed, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and that's it. And I've run into that a lot of times, even in our, locally. It's hard to get a feeling when you want to have that, smell the oil paint and touch the paint, talk to people, and you want that personal social thing that goes with. I think it's sort of like having coffee on a Sunday morning. You got to have that social aspect. If somebody else is in the gallery and you come up with a conversation about a piece of art that's in front of you, there's value added because that person is responding to you and the painting, and you're getting a different viewpoint maybe or something. So you don't get that online. But that's one of the advantages of trying to get a gallery. So is a gallery really important for an artist to have? Like at what stage of their career would you say they should start? So in other words, say you just finished your BFA, MFA, should you be in a gallery the next day with your work?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Mhm.
That's a pipe dream. Should they be in a gallery? Yes, I think every artist feels that they want to be in a gallery for whatever reason, and they want to be in a gallery that suits their own personal style. And I want to raise 2 points that you just talked about. One point, Paul, is that it is very important for artists to network. So when you talk about trying to find a gallery that suits you, you do need to network with other artists, whether it's in your own community. Now everybody can network with anybody across the country. And you do need to join arts organizations that can provide some good information for you, especially if you're a young artist just getting started. So I think networking is really important. And the other thing is that when I really talk to very young artists, or by young I mean that they haven't been painting that long, I always think that it's a great idea for an artist to hunt down a cooperative gallery. And a cooperative gallery is a wonderful opportunity. A, it's going to allow you to network, and B, it's going to put you into to the game where you can see how other artists are working, what they're producing, what their price point is. In all likelihood, if you were in a cooperative gallery, you have an opportunity to have a show or a joint show at some point. So are you going to catapult right into an A-level gallery? No, you're not. And that's another part of the equation, is that you're going to lower your expectations into something that is reasonable. There's only so many galleries out there, and a lot of them are moving to hybrid models where they are virtual as well as bricks and mortar. And I don't know where all of this is going. I don't know, given the economic climate, what's going to happen to art galleries in the future. But I think that virtual galleries are, again, a wonderful opportunity for a young artist to explore. Now, Paul, you just told me that you are launching a virtual gallery shortly. You're having a show, I believe you said November the 10th to the 23rd. And for your members, this is a wonderful opportunity for artists that are not in a bricks and mortar gallery to get into a virtual gallery and see what happens.
Yeah, we've had to change our model as well, right? It's sort of initially Artists in Canada had a model of for the independent artists to manage their own content and do their own sales. We gave them a platform to do that and PayPal buttons, and it's worked for 23 years. We're actually be starting our 24th year. Excuse me. So what's happened is with social media, artists are saying, well, we can do all our own stuff with social media, Instagram and Facebook and X. But I think what's happened is we created a gallery. Yes, we will be having a show, but it's actually in a correction. It's going to be November 23rd to December 10.
Sorry about that.
We're going to have a 2-week members only show. So it's the first one where we're just going to saying, let's get our feet wet. And it's a free show for our members. They don't have to pay any fees. And we're creating a platform that's quite easy. All they do is load stuff up and they click an agreement plan, and we handle the sale for them. So that it's a great opportunity for us to learn a little bit about this process, as well as the artist to take advantage of this. And I guess it becomes part of that portfolio for them. Eventually, as we work our way through this, we have 1 and 2 person solo shows. They'll be coming up on a regular basis now. So, so this is it's a lot more work, but our system is very automated. So a lot of that other stuff has been taken care of. So I'll be managing to start off with, and until we get really busy, then we'll have to hopefully hire some people that will manage the sales and adjudications. These are all adjudicated shows. We are not we're not just throwing stuff up for sale. So all the work has to be approved and looked at before it's presented. So I think these are kind of stepping stones for, as we call, the emerging artist as well. We have a price points that are, our first show is going to be under $1,000 is a price point. And actually the first show, this section of shows will be called regional differences, which is a way of saying, what is our art like from the East Coast to the West Coast? I want people to communicate and talk. And our group is, if you have a 2-person show, you can't have your friend. You have to pick somebody from the pile that is on the other side of the country and have a show together. So I want people to communicate and expand their bases. So basically, this is my marketing strategy. I'm sharing a little bit. But if you live in Vancouver and you share a show with somebody in, say, Newfoundland or Nova Scotia, you each have your own mailings from there, but you would actually share some of your mailings with that other co-person from each coast. So all of a sudden, people in Vancouver are seeing work from someone in Nova Scotia and vice versa. So I'm trying to build a blend. So you're not just showing your work regionally and locally. Your work is going to actually get national exposure through your friendships. And so we're becoming a lot more social. Our site is trying to do things that other sites can't do and won't do. So we can do this where social media like Instagram cannot, because you're basically an individual on Instagram to your own following. You can now go to our following as well as your own followings. So we've become kind of a hybrid as well, and try to figure out how we fit into this world, online world. And we've been online for 23 years, and I've noticed changes. And how do you change? And I think just like artists, we've had to change as an artist to use social media. Well, you're not painting as much when you're on your device all the. I hate to tell you how many hours I spend a day promoting and doing different things. Even this show will go live, but it's kind of like we go back to the artist again, and it's like, how much do you do yourself, and what can you do yourself? Do you hire somebody like yourself to get you through those spots? And I think sometimes we need other people to really help us. It's not so much your friend comes over and adjudicates your work a little bit and you have a beer. You say, well, that didn't work. That didn't get my butt in gear to go and do something, right? Where I think we've had some very positive reactions from a lot of artists that have talked with you. I've spoken to a number, and they found their direction. I mean, they're still trying to get out there, still trying to knock on a door, but they have an idea how to start doing this. So where are they about art statements and different things? Like, should they still be working on that statement or having help doing it? Does that come after they talk with somebody about their work and then actually sit down and talk about their statement?
So so people hire me a lot to help them with their artist statements. That is one thing that I get a lot of business about. But I would say people try and write a good artist statement themselves, but they can't be objective about it. So when they have somebody like me, for example, that can be much more objective about things, and really it is an exercise in drilling down into what they want the world to see and understanding their practice. So I would say, first off, produce a great body of work. That is the very first step that you're going to do. When you produce your body of work, then you can say, okay, whether it's me or another professional, okay, I've written out a rough artist statement. Here it is. What do you think? Some of them are not hitting the mark. And so I would help them with that. I would help them build their bio. Some artists, if they're brand new, don't have an established CV. Others that have been in the business for a long time have a CV that goes back to 1994. And so, you know, I would guide them through and try and pick out the things that are the most important in terms of getting prepared to approach an art gallery. That is a whole different process. And remember, artists only have one chance to make a good first impression. So I would never want an artist to not A, feel confident about what they're doing, and B, not hit the mark. There's too much competition for artists to try and get into a gallery, any gallery for that matter. So it is very important. If you want, like, not everybody wants to be a professional artist. Fair enough. We've got artists that are hobby painters. We've got artists that are just in it for a social aspect. No problem. That's beautiful. Happy to have you happily paint away, sell a painting every now and again to a family member. No problem. But I think what we're really talking about, Paul, is to guide artists into becoming those stepping stones that are needed to get into a more established gallery, shall we say. So can I talk about that for a second, about the steps that I think are important?
I think that's important. Yes.
Okay. So the first thing is, I would not advise an artist to knock on a gallery owner's door and say, can I come in and show you my portfolio? That is not appreciated nowadays. That is not how things are done. And we're going to talk about things from a gallery's perspective, but bear in mind that galleries receive probably, 50 to 100 submissions every week from artists saying, hey, I'd like to be in your gallery. So it's not a good idea to knock on a door and say, hey, can I show you my work? So what I always advise an artist to do is to go on to the gallery's website and take a look at their submission process. In all likelihood, you will be asked to submit a digital portfolio, and it will probably be 10, 15 works of art. And so that's great. You're going to choose your best work that you feel is consistent, and you're going to follow their submission process to the letter of the law. You're going to make sure that the images that you present are clear, the pixelation is strong, the resolution is good, and you're going to make sure that the title, the subject, the medium, and those kinds of things are on your submission form. Galleries don't want to fool around with artists that don't follow protocol. They're too busy to be bothered.
And I think a lot of times they have, they'll say once a month they will look at the portfolios. They're not going to look at them all through the week. They slate amount of time. It's more for efficiency. And I think people understand, well, why didn't they get back to me? You say, well, they only look at things on Monday, like the first Monday of every month, or every quarter of the year. Every 3 months they review. So sorry for the interruption, but I think it's understanding that an artist has to understand that these are business people, and it's kind of like Dragon's Den. You're just it is. You got one shot at it, and sorry to interrupt, but I think that kind of thing was to set that the tone of that.
Well, as much as we appreciate the high level of creativity in an artist, and we do very much so, we both nurture and support many, many artists. Let's face it, art is a commodity, and the art gallery is a vehicle for selling your product. So it is very business oriented. So I did want to say that if you get rejected by an art gallery through their online submission process, it doesn't mean that you'll be rejected forever. Maybe your body of work is not suitable at this particular time. So, gallery owners are notorious for slow responses or no responses. And this really frustrates artists because they submit and they never hear anything. But artists have responsibilities to play this game as well. And artists need to be proactive. So if you submit and you don't hear anything in 2 weeks, you can send an email as a follow-up. And if you don't hear anything at that point, I think it's fair game for you to engage with the gallery, whether that's by phone or in person or whatever, and just say, you know what, I'm sorry I didn't get a response. Can you tell me what's going on? So I think that from the artist's point of view, sometimes they just give up. They say, well, my art's not good enough and I'm going to keep going. That may or may not be true. So you need to persevere and you need to be persistent. But let's say by sheer happenstance and by the quality of your work that you do get an invitation to go into the gallery and physically show your work. So there is a knack to all of this, and I'll tell you some of the things that are important. First of all, your work has to be the best of the best. Your work is completely presentable. If you frame, it's good. What does the back of your artwork look like? Is it obsessively fantastic? Then you're going to kind of show up. You're going to be presentable. You're going to be clean. You're going to be professional. You're going to be confident, and you're really going to be excited that you now have the opportunity to meet a gallery owner in person. One thing that happens with artists is they become so excited to be invited to show their work into a gallery that they burst in and they sort of swamp the gallery owner with information. Gallery owners tend to want to take their own time to take a look at the body of work. So that means you walk in, you have your body of work, perhaps you've brought your artist statement, perhaps you've brought a bio, you present your work, and then you step back. And you give the gallery owner time to absorb what you're showing them. They undoubtedly will have questions about what you're up to. And so that it's important that you continually present a professional image with confidence. Galleries want to work with artists who have their act together. They can't be bothered. There's too many artists that want to get into galleries these days. You have to stand out. You have to be a professional. You don't have to talk like you own the world, but you have to be really confident and comfortable with your work. So I think if I was a gallery owner, I would be looking for those qualities in an artist. They're producing excellent work. They're producing good quality work. They are professional themselves. Perhaps they've done a little bit of research on the gallery. Hey, I see that you established in 2001. That's awesome. Good for you. I noticed that you've carried certain artists in your gallery. That's fantastic. So make sure that you impress them that you've done your homework. And the other thing I think is important, Paul, and I'll let you jump in 1 second, is that you need to provide selling points to the gallery. You need to say to the gallery, if I'm accepted into your gallery, and there's a whole bunch of questions that you need to ask about getting into a gallery. If you are accepted into the gallery, I would say, what can I do for you to help you sell your work? So, some artists will sit back and go, hey, done, gallery's taking 50%. I've done everything, and now the gallery's going to have to do all the heavy lifting and hope for the best. Not true. If you really want to make a good impression, you are going to say to the gallery, what can I do to help promote my work in your gallery. The gallery then becomes more invested in saying, hey, okay, we've got somebody here that is as invested in selling my art as they want to sell. We're getting into the next chapter, Paul, but I did want to stress the point that if you are invited into an art gallery, that you really know that the competition is intense, and so you have to really be on your game.
Yeah. And I think some galleries just say, leave your portfolio and we'll call you and you can come back and pick it up. They want to look at it. So they'll accept portfolios this week and you drop it off. And I've been in advertising for well over 30 some years. And I've done a number of packaging things where you do a cold call. But a lot of these cold calls happen, you want to stand out from all the other cold calls that are happening to those clients. So the client has got a call, they're looking for a new agency or they're looking for a new something. You say, well, we create these unique packaging things that are relative to what you're presenting. So in other words, if you leave your portfolio, and this goes in the fact, even when you're making shipping containers for your works, that you have a unique look to them. Like they have your look that you walk in and you say, that's Paul's work. I can tell just by the packaging of the wooden boxes and things, they look like that's that work. Whether it's color, it's up to whatever you want to do. But the portfolio may be a unique box with the pieces in it, and it's presented and it's got a ribbon on it. I just said, there's something that is uniquely you. Maybe it's got a floral design if you paint florals. Something that says it stands out from the others in that pile. Maybe it's just a little thicker than all the little loose pieces of paper sticking out of the other one that was just delivered before you. Make your product recognizably you. And that can be reused over and over again because that comes back to you for your next project. Make it big enough so that it handles your larger pieces of work and relative to what they're asking for. Maybe you have two different sizes, but they look the same or similar. It becomes, you got a 50% better chance if your stuff floats to the top of the pile. And because a lot of times they'll do a quick sort and say they'll put these ones are gone, but we're going to review these three again. You want to be in that second review. You want to make sure you make the final cut. And that's the best thing. You just got to make sure your stuff floats to the top as best you can. Even if it was delivered last, it's awkward enough. They're not going to put it on the bottom. They want to, or they're going to crush that little flower that's on the top. You want to stand out in your own way. And I guess, if you're an abstract painter, we're just talking about 2D work here, paintings, drawings, and such. But even goes for sculpture. Like it comes down to three-dimensional items and other ways of doing it. This is the same process of getting into a gallery. And we are kind of closing on our thing, but I think we have to talk about, there's another gallery situation here. Now, understanding that a lot of us want commercial galleries, but the public gallery sector is huge. The opportunity to show a body of work is there. And what happens is, and I'll just say, here's ways that you can actually make money. They actually pay you to have a show. Now, most communities have some small public galleries. They pay Carfax fees, generally. You can ask if they do or not. Actually, in 2024, they got an 8% increase in those fees, which is that. Yeah. And for the next 2 years after that, 4% and 4%. This is what Carfax does for you as an artist. And I'm going to plug them for a second. Join your local chapter of Carfax. It is great value. You're giving into a program that they fight for you. I mean, you're going to need all your help you can go get with what's coming down the pipe with all the other things that are happening out in the art world these days. And that's a great way of networking. and finding people of like mind. But they also help you with your funding and your grants. There's money in there. That's where you can make part of your income from, is learning how to write a grant. The grants and funding can go to produce these shows. And your commercial galleries want to see that you are traveling across the country with shows. Because when your work starts showing up in different cities, those galleries go to those shows and they say, I would like to have that artist. And you go, what an opportunity, right? And so again, get your portfolio together, get your body of work together, get your artist statement. You will need it all for this as well. But don't forget, public galleries, I think, are really important as part of your full roundedness. If your work is only good for a commercial gallery, it should be as good in a public sector as well, And this, generally, it's not for sale. It's for show in the public gallery. Some of the work can be sold before. They generally don't like work that's been seen before, because they want to encourage people to come to see a body of work. But it's great for the building your name and building your brand as to what you do. Sorry.
Well, any exposure is good, Paul, whether it's in your own local community, or it's on a virtual gallery, or it's in a public gallery. It is, all about exposure. And I just wanted to press a couple of points about whether you're in a public gallery, or you're in a commercial gallery, or you're in a cooperative, wherever you happen to be, is that you need to understand that, this is a business. So there are contracts perhaps that you need to sign. So do you understand the contract? Some artists will be so overjoyed that they've been given an opportunity that they will sign anything. And that is not, again, a professional approach to take. So you need to educate yourself on how galleries operate. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But whether it's a public gallery, you need to be invested in the process. How long is the show going to run? What does it look like? How is it going to be promoted? Are you going to have an opportunity to have a talk or do something? I think that there's so many things that artists need to be responsible for, other than just, saying, hey, I'm going to do my body of work, and that's the end of the story. It's just not like that. Yes.
And understanding that, say you've been accepted into a gallery and you have to drop 10 pieces of work off or ship 10 pieces of work. They say, oh, what about the contract and all these things? The gallery said they don't want to sign a contract and all the things. You have to create a consignment form with a listing of all your work on it, and you've signed the bottom of it, and there's a place for them to accept the work. That's really all you really need in a two-part form. It's to show that it's delivered on a day. There's some general copy about your work and a listing of the work that's been delivered to that address, and you've signed your name at the bottom, and all you have to do is sign the name that they've received the work. They're not signing any other big agreement about any great things, because I know a lot of galleries will not sign that. They may have their own contract that they want you to sign, and it could be anything on it, but do read it very carefully, because exclusivity, all the little things, a small type that can go in there that could hinder your growth, because you get in one gallery, they don't want you to be in other galleries or do other art things in that city, for instance. So you got to be careful of that and stand up for your rights on those things, whether it's a 40% or a 50% commission. Who pays, when you get paid? Ask those questions. How often, do you have to wait 60 days? Or you're the last one to get paid. You really are. When it comes down to it. So you want to know those questions. And if it's in writing, all the better somewhere. Don't assume anything. And so many, like you said, so many artists are so happy that the gallery has just accepted them. I met this gallery and say, well, after a year or two, and you kind of realize, I'm not quite as happy as I was 2 years ago when I went in there. It looks good on my portfolio or on my resume somewhere that I'm at that gallery. But if they aren't producing for you, don't wait till the very end, to the bad day. You go in and say, what can, like you said before, what can I do? Is it about leaving a margin of 10% on the price? We'll do it. I don't know. So it's kind of, could I have a group show with this person? Asking an opportunity. And a lot of times there'll be a dropout and they'll need a filler. Are you willing to step up to the plate to be that person when the time comes? So, but you never know. Don't push too hard. But I think it's important that they understand that you'll work with them. Anyway, I think there you are. We're gonna end part 1 of this one. We're gonna come back here shortly, and we're gonna have a conversation about the gallery's perspective about all these people that are bombarding them, coming through their doors, and saying, how do they manage this traffic in their business? I mean, they'd love to have us all, I'm sure, but I think at some point, how do you fit in, and do you fit into certain galleries, and where do you go from there? So I would like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank Joanne for joining us for this part 1. And watch Joanne. She's got her, if you reach out to Joanne, she can talk to you for your own personal needs on an individual basis in confidence. And thank you. Thank you again. And you guys have a great day. Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you very much, Paul. Awesome.
Hang in there and we'll be right back.
Okay, sounds great.